Welcome back to We Talk Boxing, and today I will be discussing the fight which took place on the weekend between Hergovic and Zhang, which was a final eliminator for the IBF title, which was, somewhat of a bizarre display, from one of the boxers during the fight. So as usual, please like, subscribe, share and comment for more boxing related content to help us grow this channel. Now, this Filip Hergovic versus Zhilei Zhang final eliminate fight was a co-main event on the AJ versus Usyk card. Okay. Now, this fight, Hergovic was the winner, on points, which now sees him, with a 15-0 record, and Zhilei Zhang with a 24 1-1 record. So this was his first loss that he sustained in his career to date. And my initial thoughts, my honest opinion, of both fighters is that it was a good fight, a good heavyweight dust up at times, but with some bizarre antiques which were happening, in the Filip Hergovic corner. Now, it was, pretty much like the second time I've seen both boxers fight live as well, so that was quite interesting, just to see them, obviously knuckle down, but both guys had good records coming into this fight. And it was, like I said, it was a good heavyweight clash. Both guys were, throwing good combinations at times with big shots being landed as well, often catching and hurting each other. Do you know what I mean? Both guys were hurt many times throughout the fight. But I always felt that, just from my opinion, obviously, everyone's got their own perspective of how the fight went, etc. But for me, do you know what I mean? Zhilei Zhang, was the stronger of the two fighters throughout the fight. He was the one who was working harder, throwing more shots, often landing more shots because he was throwing more shots as well. And on many occasions as well, hurt Filip Hergovic. You know what I mean? But even though, Zhang was working more and throwing more, etc., I always felt that, deep down, watching both guys, that if Filip Hergovic, just steps it up a little bit, that he could have potentially have maybe even stopped Zhang. Because every time he was letting his hands go, he was hurting Zhang, he was catching Zhang, and again, he was hurting him. He was just wasn't doing enough, and he was being outworked, outthrown, by the taller man potentially, which was interesting. But as I said, do you know what I mean? His antiques were just bizarre because he would often, like after he got caught, like turn his back and like on his opponent, and the referee would often like kind of warn him, and he would kind of walk away and then obviously turn back towards Zhang and then try and throw a couple of punches. It was literally bizarre, and obviously in his corner as well. Obviously he was taking instructions from his cornerman, but when he was coming out, his body language, literally, I ain't gonna lie, it looked like he didn't even want to be in there, didn't even want to box. Now I'm not sure what you have to kind of put that down to. Like, did he not have a good camp? Was he injured? Do you know what I mean? Has he got some sort of personal issues going on in the background that we haven't really heard of? That really affected him, because whatever it was, do you know what I mean? It affected him big time, even though he won the fight. And it's quite interesting because, to me, he was probably fighting in second gear. Do you know what I mean? Because realistically, as I said, if he stepped it up a little bit, just a little bit more, throwing a bit more shots, he possibly could have got Zhang out of there. But like I said, he was boxing at second gear, and like he was still fairly dangerous. It was just his body language. Like I said, it was bizarre, literally. And for me, I'd probably say that he definitely didn't train well for this fight, and he could have possibly just even turned up and thought, you know what, fuck it, I could get in there and stay with this guy. This guy's, he's not really on my level sort of thing. But I think Zhang showed him that he is on his level, and for me, outboxed him. Landing some good combinations with some power and speed. Do you know what I mean? But the one thing that Zhang kind of lacked was that stamina. Do you know what I mean? Just to keep that work rate going for the whole round. You know what I mean? Because I'd probably say that you had, for each round, you probably had a good 90-second spell, and then you probably slow down, and that's where obviously Hergovic then landed his shots on him, etc., etc. And then Zhang would come back and then hit for Hergovic and then Zhang, and then that's pretty much how the rest of that round went. But those rounds were quite similar all up until the 12th round. But anyway, do you know what I mean? Like I said, I felt the scoring was bizarre, the performance was bizarre by Hergovic, but I felt that the minimum Zhang should have probably left that ring with was a draw. If not, he probably should have even won. Do you know what I mean? That's my opinion. Do you know what I mean? You guys let me know in the comments below. But anyway, what's next for both guys? Do you know what I mean? Hergovic is ranked quite highly in the IBF. You know what I mean? So I know that was a final eliminator and stuff, but obviously, you know what I mean, he could still try and maybe challenge a few others because the IBF belt ain't, oh, sorry, the IBF Mandel is not going to really be called anytime soon. You know what I mean? So if I was him, he probably, I won't take the rematch with Zhang. You know what I mean? But I look for an alternative or different opponent, and a few names that, you know what I mean, from looking at the rankings that come into mind. Obviously, you got Martin Bicoli as well. I think he's ranked 5 or something, or 6 in that in the IBF. But you also got AJ as well. You know what I mean? Obviously AJ is coming off 2 losses back to back now, so he will be looking for another opponent in the next couple of weeks or so, because obviously Hearn said that he wants to try and get him out before the end of the year, and obviously 3 fights next year. So between now and, you know what I mean, in the next, you know what I mean, 3 to 6 months, that could be a potential. Do you know what I mean? Now, Zhilei Zhang, on the other hand, you know what I mean? He is ranked quite nicely as well with the WBO, you know what I mean? And that's possibly his best ranking as well, you know what I mean? So he could potentially fight against some good fighters in the WBO rankings as well, because after that loss, he's not really going to be pushing for a world title yet. But if he comes back with some good performances and some good wins on his resume, who knows what could happen. But I think it's the Sanchez fight. You know what I mean? Sanchez is ranked number 3 in the WBO. I think that's a good fight. You know what I mean? For Zhang. Do you know what I mean? Or, depending on what happens with, obviously, Hughie Fury and Michael Hunter, he may try and challenge Hunter. Do you know what I mean? That's another option. You've also got Otto Warlin as well, who's ranked number 8. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure. I don't think he's got a fight scheduled. Do you know what I mean? So that could be a pretty much easy fight to make straight away. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, as always, you guys let me know what your thoughts are, you know what I mean, about the fight and the bizarre antics, you know what I mean, from Hergovic. Do you know what I mean? And who would you like to see Hergovic and Zhang fight next? Do you know what I mean? Would you like to see a rematch? Do you know what I mean? Let me know in the comments below. As always, subscribe, like, comment, share for more boxing related content. Bless.